well.
Not yet. I'm not
Not yet.
speaking
I'm
yet.
not speaking yet.
All right, okay.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good evening.
And
And
well,
well,
we got
we got
Susan Lee
Susan Leigh
tonight,
tonight,
and we're
and
talking
we're talking
about
about
tonight
tonight
a new
a new
era.
era.
As you know,
As you know,
last week
last
our
week our
Queen died.
Queen died.
We're going
We're
to have a
going to have
new
a new
king,
king,
and
and
three is
three
got
is
to.
got to.
I think
I think
get used
get
to
used
it.
to it.
Is that
Is
right,
that right,
Susan?
Susan?
Well, I mean, there's a sense of saying if you can't change something, there's no point, if you like, stressing over it. So, yeah, I mean, in a sense, it was inevitable. The lady was 96, so there comes a time when you know that this is going to happen. I think the thing with living with somebody who's old, and people who are living with somebody who's sick perhaps will know this too, that you get so used to having somebody with you in your life who is perhaps terminally ill or aging or whatever, and you kind of get used to living with them in that state. So even though other people might be looking in and saying not long yet, as you living in it and as you're coping with it on a day-to-day basis, you actually adjust and adapt. And it becomes, I remember my mum and dad, my dad's mum died while they were on holiday, and I didn't know whether to phone them or not. And in the end, I was advised to just phone them up and say. And my mum said, "Why are you phoning, love?" And I said, "Well, Grandma." And I thought they'd obviously know why I was phoning. I'd never ring for any other reason. And I said, "Oh, it's Grandma." She said, "Why? What's happened?" I said, "Well, she's died." I don't think I was quite so blunt. And she was incredulous. And I think we do get used to people being in a state of continual, perhaps, ill health or aging or not as fit and active, and that becomes our normal, doesn't it? So, yeah, there is a sense of saying get used to it, but to some extent we get used to having that, in the case of the Queen, that old grandmother figure who, was a bit off colour, and she'd have a few days out and then she'd rally and we'd see her again. And she was very much a sort of grandmother caring figure, overseeing us all and holding so much of the nation together. And I think that's why it's hit so many people so hard, because she was much loved for, her. I mean, she seemed to have integrity. She never put a foot wrong. She held, everybody together. She was a constant, wasn't she? And she just seemed to be the nation's granny as well as a family of her own.
So
So
what did
what
the
did the
Queen mean
Queen
to
mean to
you?
you?
Well, I think, I mean, like a lot of people, there's only been one queen, there's only been one monarch in my life. So I think the vast majority of people in the country will think that they can't recall a time when she wasn't our queen. And so it's been quite interesting in a sense watching all the various rites and rituals that come about with the changing of a monarch. All these proclamations that have been going out. I hadn't realised that. Well, it's obvious when you think about it, but in the old days, somebody had to go from court on horseback and inform every location that they had a new monarch. And that happened. That's been going around the country. So on Saturday, where I live, at 2:30, the local town hall, I think they got the town crier or somebody in, and he had to do the proclamation. So on one sense, it's an awful lot of ritual, and that's been interesting. And watching the state funeral of a monarch, all this has been really interesting. But I think also it's a time for thinking about, reflecting on transition. And actually, when you think about it, you're talking about new eras in our lives. We will all individually, but not collectively, have had a lot of experiences of new eras. So going from junior school to high school is the start of a new era for a lot of people. Certainly going away to university or college, or moving away from home for the first time. They say, oh, wow, this is huge, this is momentous. Something big is starting again, or buying your first home or starting a new job, all these things. Are you okay? All these things are momentous, and they're the start of a new era, or with a new partner, and having or certainly when you become a parent for the first time, that's very definitely a new era, because an awful lot of new things are brought in, but those new eras are being done on a very personal level. This is a collective thing where everybody in the country has some, being affected by it, and a lot of people have affection for her. So it is a time of perhaps loss and grief. And we talked the other week, didn't we, about how when a celebrity dies, how when somebody famous dies, that often it can be a vehicle for processing your own grief about a situation perhaps that you weren't able to do before. So like when the Queen, a lot of people who were upset about her death actually never met her, they didn't know her, they've never had any personal connection with her, but what is happening is they are transferring onto her the whole feelings of their imagined feelings of perhaps what the boys are going through, the grandsons are going through, all the various interrelationships, however they feel about Charles and or Camilla, all the various situations, looking at Princess Anne and Andrew and all these different things. So we all have an awful lot of opinions about people that we've probably never met, but at the same time it is a vehicle to process our own grief, our own emotions, our own sense of caring about this elderly lady who was our monarch, but how we feel about her and how we process our own grief, and perhaps by proxy, as I say, for somebody that we've never met, but how we can work through our own grief and re-heal about situations perhaps from our own grandmother who died, or somebody we had a great affection for. And that can often happen when a celebrity dies or somebody famous dies.
Yeah, how can we learn from this then? How can we? Because I was brought up, not all the life, but I was used to her as I was growing up.
Yeah, well, I think we have to. I think moving forward, people will accept that it is a time of change, and we have to adjust and adapt. And lots of things in life are not constant, and so it is a time for accepting that things move on. And as I said before, we've all had experience of doing this, where we've perhaps changed schools, or we've moved location, or we've had a relationship that's ended, and we had to go through that, or the children leaving home. That's a biggie for a lot of people, where that is the end of an era where they look at their own partners and say, heck, it's just you and me again, honey, and we're on our own. And so those things, how we move forward and how we learn from these, it's another time for acknowledging and reminding ourselves that we things don't last forever. They often do move on, and we have a change of circumstances. We have for most people, we're not necessarily going to be too affected by this. It's when you get your new postage stamps, or you get your new coins, your new banknotes, or whatever it might be, and there's or God Save the King. It sounded really strange today to hear people singing God Save the King, and so that sort of adjustment. But it is a time for sort of thinking, heck, yes, it is. We've moved forward, and life is like that. Everything does move forward. We ramp up a generation, and for some people it might be a time to reflect on their own mortality, their own lives. Am I living my best life? Is it time for me to actually think, hang on a minute, I am just cruising, I'm on cruise control in my life? Is it maybe time to actually think, hang on a minute, seize the day, carpe diem, and seize the day and do the things that I've perhaps been putting off, or not had the courage to do, or was waiting for another time to start? And I think for some people it can be a time where they're just given an effective nudge about the importance of not just living life on cruise control, but actually doing things that you wanted to do, or you meant to do, or you were hoping to do, get them in the diary, get them moving a bit, even if you don't fully execute something, get it started, because you can't take each day for granted,
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, do we?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
What changes can we make in the Commonwealth?
What changes can we make? I think changes are about saying, okay, how much of my life am I accepting? As a new era starts, a lot of people have perhaps decade birthdays, they have momentous times coming up, anniversaries of things, and using those as a prompt to introduce those things in your life that are important for you. So again, it's about even simple things like clearing out your wardrobe of all the stuff you don't wear, or clearing out your cupboards and doing a general sort out. It's amazing what a difference that can make. I know I had a lot of work done in my house this year, and throwing things out that perhaps have been accumulating on the kitchen table or in a drawer or something, and all those things, or getting somebody in to sort out the garden, which I did this year, all those things make a huge difference to how clear you feel, how fresh you feel, how it's a possibility to start something new. And I think simple steps like doing that, like sorting out a bit or clearing away a bit or making a couple of phone calls, those simple steps can really be very positive strides into doing something that has some meaning for you, that will make a difference to your life. And I think using a new era, using a new start like that as a prompt to begin things and to start making plans, and not just to live through. You see, we've had a couple of years now, 2.5 years now, where so much stuff that we wanted to do was stuck on hold. And we were literally locked into positions of not really achieving an awful lot. In many cases, some people were able to continue, but for a lot of people it was a bit of a stuck time, a locked down time. And I think perhaps using this as another nudge to say, come on, let's not be afraid of going out. Let's not be afraid of going to the mall and having a coffee. Let's not be afraid of starting that new training course, or applying for a new job, or looking at a situation and doing something that suits me better, getting back on dating sites again. All those things can be prompts to say, it is a time for living now. We're out of lockdown, so let's start living in a bit more vibrant, a bit more alive, a bit more seizing the day kind of way, and enjoying what possibilities there are, and making a few potentials and a few possibilities of your own, because it is all down to you. It's down to us as individuals to make our own moves, and people can enthuse us, people can motivate us, people can encourage us, but it is down to us initially to get out there and perhaps get on that dating site, or make those phone calls, or clear those drawers out, or whatever it is that I've mentioned, and be a bit more proactive, and actually realise that once you start, you're actually changing a little bit, and you're actually opening the door to possibilities. Because it's amazing, isn't it, how often we start something that perhaps we don't know how we're going to ever finish it, and other people pop up, other people appear, other people join us, other people perhaps share part of the journey, and they're with us, and they we make new friends, new allies, new people in our group who get us going, and that itself can be hugely rewarding. Even if we don't do the full mile, it can be hugely rewarding meeting these people along the way. So again, it's useful to think of doing things like that.
How about the Kate and children?
Well, you mean children when they have a grandparent or a great grandparent who's died? You mean?
Yeah. Because I found Kate and Billy and everybody together. You know what I mean?
You mean because you mean, are you talking about William and Harry? Is that what you're saying, or are you talking about the impact of
That's it, yeah.
the grandparent dying? Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, I mean, it could be the opportunity for those two to make up well enough. I mean, none of us really know what's actually going on. We're very good at reading into pictures, photographs. Oh, you know, they didn't look at each other, or they stood a long distance away from each other, or she glanced across and the other one turned away, or whatever. So we're very good at interpreting things to whatever fits the narrative. But at the end of the day, hopefully, when something momentous happens, like a family bereavement, people can get by well enough. And today I saw that the whole family was walking behind the hearse, which was rather nice. And so I think things like, things like family tragedies, things like family hurt like this can succeed in helping people reunite a bit. And we don't have to be bosom buddies. If we're friendly enough, if we're polite enough, if we're civil enough, often that can be enough to oil the wheels, because often people meet up at funerals, or they meet up at times like this, and they will spend a reasonable amount of time together. But once the dust has settled, once that's all over and done with, they may never hardly ever touch paths again, apart from formal occasions or particularly eventful times. So, how much of our lives do we share with people that we may not particularly like, but we can get on well enough? And that happens a lot in families, doesn't it? Where some members of the family are more popular than others. Some members of the family we might avoid. Some we might say, apart from this funeral or that wedding or whatever it might be, a special birthday or something, we're never really going to cross paths again. And I think sometimes being adult is about being able to be respectful enough to say, okay, I can cope with this. I can smile, I can be polite, I can share some platitudes and pleasantries, but actually that's all that needs to happen. And we don't need to, in the case of the royal family, we don't need to oil the wheels of the gossip channels, do we? We just keep it polite and pleasant and supportive, and that can be good enough in a lot of cases.
Have you had the pleasure of meeting any royal family?
No, I don't think I have. No, I haven't. I've not actually met them, no, so that's okay. Met a few celebrities, but not ever any members of the royal family. And so, yeah. You have, I think you went, didn't you go to a garden party?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It was really kind of like, it was really special, and it was something that you will never forget about it.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
Thank you so much today.
My pleasure.
I think that you all need somebody in our lives. And the Queen touched every one of our lives. So when you your partner, see your friend, or someone upset, life's too short. Show respect and some love, and try to get back to them. Who knows? Bye for now.